Do you remember that hilarious scene in The Pianist where the Nazi officers storm the house of these Jews and tell them all to stand up at the dining area? And obviously, the old man can't stand up because he's confined to a wheelchair. And so the two Nazi officers pick him up, standing either side of the wheelchair, and they just walk him to the balcony and tip him out head first. That's always seemed really pointless to me. Like, if you want to send a message, I don't know why you'd do that. I don't know why you wouldn't just resort to either tipping him down the stairs or shooting him in the head. I don't know why they wasted their energy carrying him to the balcony just to tip him out. Like, if that was me, I would have carried him to the balcony, lifted him over the edge, and dropped him. So, like, it's a completely vertical drop, and so that the wheels impact the floor, and so that obviously the wheelchair bounces off the floor. Um, in my opinion, it just doesn't make sense why they didn't do that. They just picked him up and wasted energy, sort of like tipping the wheelchair. I mean, at least fucking chuck the wheelchair down, as to hit the lifeless body on the floor. In my opinion, that would have been way more funny. Um, but instead, they choose to chuck him out head first, and I don't really know why they chose to do that. Like, I mean, if you really want to put on like a bit of a show and for it to be uh, the funniest outcome and also the most painful for the person suffering, you would obviously tie him to the wheelchair and then throw him with the wheelchair. Um, and it just doesn't make sense that they didn't do that. I think what they didn't really take into consideration is the use of gravity in this situation and, how they can best benefit from dropping the Jew with the wheelchair. He's going to hit the ground with a lot more force because obviously it's a heavier object. The wheelchair is, weighing him down, um, thus causing a bigger impact. And, with the element of him being bound to the wheelchair, the wheelchair shattering, it's going to cause a lot more discomfort. What they also could have done is they could have carried the wheelchair to the balcony, put the back of the wheelchair so it's facing the balcony barrier. And what they could have done is they could have had two Nazis either side of the wheelchair, sort of like tipping it over, so it's like a sort of dump truck motion. So you sort of tip the person out, and he sort of like flies out head first, and he sort of like falls down head first. But there's like no way of escape because obviously the people holding you are like restraining your arms as well. So when you get tipped out, and then you can like put another family member in the wheelchair. So then obviously, yeah, you are disadvantaged if you chuck the person with the wheelchair because then you can't tip anyone else out. You've got to keep going down, get in the wheelchair, which may very well have broken, and holding it back up the stairs. So I agree for the most part that keeping the wheelchair up and acting it as sort of like a dump truck dumping motion, so you can like dump people out of it, is effective. But then I think what I would do ideally is have reserve wheelchairs so that you can obviously strap the victim into the wheelchair so there's absolutely no escape. And what I would actually do is I would bind them twice so that there's just no escape. Like, you just can't escape from that whatsoever. And even if the bounds would, the binds would become loose mid-fall, that's just something you've just got to live with. But they shouldn't come loose, and then you've got the hope that obviously the wheelchair hits the ground wheels first, and they can sort of like spring back and have a sort of bouncing effect. So then what you could actually do is you could take it in turns dropping victims in wheelchairs, and you could sort of measure have like a guy at the bottom measuring how far they bounce off the ground. So then in the end, that there's a kind of winner. So you could kind of make it into a competition. But the point is, like, or my point that I'm trying to make is, don't just pick up the guy and dip him out of the wheelchair with, there's no effort, there's no planning in that. If you're going to do that, you might as well chuck him down the stairs or shoot the fucker. You might as well carry the wheelchair and devise a sort of methodical way to dispose of the victim. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Comment your thoughts down below, and yeah, please rate, comment, subscribe. please rate, comment, subscribe, and hope you've enjoyed this video.